Okay, we are live. Some new developments right now involving a tragedy, which I'll say in quotes. I'm very impartial about this, not to be irreverent, but I don't trust anything. Sue me. It's January 29th, 2025, and just the other day we were talking about the anniversary dates coming up. The Kobe Bryant explosion in the sky, the Challenger explosion, the Columbia explosion, and previously we had drawn our attention to this week. It seems like this is the week leading up to the end of January. Well, this seems to be an inordinate number of tragedies in the sky involving explosions that are visible to a lot of people. Like you immediately see it. You see the fire, the drama. Even with Kobe Bryant, they published pictures of the smoke right away. And I said, this is some kind of immolation sacrifice or something. For example, this was the exact week, if you recall, that Elon Musk said he was going to sacrifice the Falcon to the Dragon fire. And I remember saying there's something significant about this. SpaceX prepares to sacrifice Falcon 9 to Dragon fire. So you look at the Challenger explosion, the Columbia, the Kobe Bryant thing, and it just seems like this week seems to be resonating with this theme. And so in this context, I was going to talk about Leave the World Behind, its release date, the significance of the date 128, and how that's the timestamp where the Dolly ship hits the bridge. But there's a lot of things that we were talking about significant to that number. But I was like, this entire week leading up to like the beginning of February seems to be like a disaster week. In fact, February 2nd, and this was 21, that was the date that they did this test where this rocket exploded very fantastically. We've been looking at this for quite some time. So when I see that there's some big thing in the news, which looks like a big disaster, my first thought is, okay, what are we seeing here? Are we seeing some kind of a psyop? I mean, you don't know. You only know what people on the internet say, because people tend to attach themselves to these things. But can you really verify something? Like, do you have enough information when you see something on the screen to conclude that it's real and that it happened as described? Well, no, technically you don't. Don't forget the lessons of 9/11, 2001, and other days, where nothing's changed. The game hasn't changed. You don't think they could fill up a plane with dummies for some twisted, morbid, mind-warping PR stunt? Mass casualty simulation? This could have been a drill, for all you know. Unless you know something different. And if you do, you're welcome to call in, but we no longer believe by default. I certainly don't. That's because I'm a skeptic. Okay, so we've got about 56 already in the chat. Fascinating. I didn't realize how fast it could fill up. So I'm just a little late tonight, but I am planning on starting an earlier live stream. But I've been rebuilding my eBay store. As I said, it's in the black for the first time in a year. I've been kind of barely breaking even. And in the last few weeks, it's really picked up. So I'm not really specifically selling anything related to this channel, although I've thought about it. Like paintings of crisis actors, or your favorite psyops, iconic scenes. If you have any ideas, if there's a character you want painted, a school shooter, I'll do it. Just let me know in the commission section. Commission a school shooter painting. I mean, there's more interesting characters than that, obviously. I'm just saying. Okay, what else? JLB's rant on flat earthers. Now, this is good. This is good. But it's something of a straw man. Like in 2025, if you're still attached to a flat earth model, you're a caveman. And I also want to add, it's 2025. If you're still attached to the globe model, you're a caveman. The model first approach presupposes quite a bit. Much of it untested, untestable, and accepted on faith. Do you trust the Bible? Do you trust the TV screen? I'm saying that there's not enough information to be so conclusive about any of this stuff. You can call me a shape agnostic. I'm actually shape ambivalent. Like, I actually don't care. Like, you can sit there wringing your hands because I'm not going to kneel before the globe. But it's like, honestly, I don't believe in space travel. I think the whole concept of space travel is science fiction. And if I don't know what space is, then I can't say I have complete enough knowledge to go with the spinning globe Earth model, even though it may be the best explanation for everything that we observe. But that doesn't mean it's the entire picture. We're still missing something. We're missing quite a lot, in my opinion. And they're more relevant questions anyway. But JLB has made some interesting points. And, like, I'm all for skepticism, but I'm against low information disbelief. Like, I don't want to sit with the same people who don't believe in panda bears. So when he's talking about the flat earthers, telling them to unsubscribe, that's what he means. He's not referring to skeptics. In fact, he adds that he's not a baller. He, in fact, doesn't believe in it either. He just doesn't have a shape. So if anything, he's somewhat shape agnostic, if not ambivalent. But as you'll hear, he has some words. Ted Stryker, did you already talk about the plane and chopper crash over Washington? Oh, the video's private? Never mind. I have a pull quote here, so no big deal. And I think he made some valid points. He said, no, I don't have it here. We'll have to wait. That's too bad. I got something like Rudolf Steiner to read instead. This is random, but not really random. It's pertinent to my life. Rudolf Steiner, 1924, quote, there are non-human incarnations on Earth. Satanic beings live among us. They are in connection with evil spirit Ahriman. In our countless people incarnation, this is what he's saying here. In our time, countless people incarnate without ego. They're not really human beings. This is Rudolf Steiner, who I guess in today's terminology, you might call him an occultist. But, he's a philosopher, writer, architect, social reformer, esotericist, and a clairvoyant. And he's describing what sounds like NPCs, but maybe even worse than mere NPCs. So let's continue. We see them all around us, but they are not incarnations of an ego. They are inserted into the physical heredity. They are given an etheric and astral body, and to a certain extent inwardly endowed with consciousness, but if you don't look at them closely, they look like human beings from the outside, but they're not human beings in the true sense of the word. This is a terrible truth, but it's something that exists, and it's a reality. It's an interesting concept here that a large swath of the population, maybe 50%, are really just part of the system, like part of the matrix, soulless, whatever you want to call it, AI, NPCs, here for the purposes of keeping the ensouled, incarnated beings, the authentic ones, from figuring out how the whole thing is rigged. And it reminds me of that 10-episode TV series called Space Cadets, where they had 10 people in low Earth orbit, but it was really just a movie staged. They managed to trick them. But it wasn't like the movie set, which is what it was. It's not like the people around it just tricked these 10 people into thinking that they were actually going into space. Half of the astronauts were actually actors. So it's 50-50. Half liars, half real people. And the job of the liars, of the actors, is to keep the real people from figuring out that the whole thing was fake. And they managed to keep the ruse up for a number of days. And I think that might be a microcosm of Earth. That it's like 50-50. Half of us are here and the other half are portals to some hell realm. And they're entirely nefarious, but they're just so well hidden, practically invisible. Anyway, that's Rudolf Steiner's notion, and I somewhat agree with it. All right, let's see here. Jay Diggs. Oh, yes. Ted Stryker, you mentioned the crash. I saw some video, and again, I was talking about it in the context of tonight's points of interest. I was going to discuss all of the explosions in the sky. and why the week that Musk blew up that Falcon in the Dragon's Fire, they did an abort mission. It had dummies exploded, so effigies exploding. When that happened, we were looking towards the end of January for something to occur, because we said there's some kind of sacrifice they do like on an annual basis, but it usually involves something in the sky and an explosion. And with Kobe Bryant, they specifically said explosion. Okay, J. Dig says new moon, January 29th, 1987, and January 25th, 2020, within one day of both crashes. Yeah, I'll have to look and see. I think you might be onto something, though. I think there's something about this week. And I think the Challenger exploded on the 19th anniversary of Apollo 1. Lots of interesting connections. Runway 33 says WOPR 3354. Okay, interesting. Runway 33, didn't know that. Ollie Goering says they're kicking Palestinians out of the land Gaza so they can build a canal. It's amazing we have two different universes. In one universe, Donald Trump turned the water back on in California and fixed TikTok. In the other universe, he didn't do anything with the water, and it was his side that tried to ban TikTok in the first place. King Ravanus' Thule Society. Yeah, I first heard about Steiner in a book, I think it was called The Spear of Destiny. And it talked about all these various secret societies that may have influenced Hitler, the Nazis. Interesting stuff. But he's a thinker of that age, a philosopher, occultist. And occultism in the 20s and 30s is way different from what came after the 60s. And what you get now is mixed in. I think it's a little politicized. It's kind of like environmental feminism. Speaking of which, some chemtrailer was asking me about chemtrails and that they've taken thousands of pictures of them. And I wanted to ask this person, why don't environmentalists care? You know, environmentalists, if you're really an environmentalist, why wouldn't you care about something like chemtrails and metals being sprayed in the skies and stuff, what they say? And it's just an interesting question because they don't care. And this just shows how compartmentalized the system is. Because left wing believes in climate change, they blame on the private sector. The conspiracy realm, which falls to the right, blames the secret government and secret projects, secret spraying. Missing the latest psyop. Yeah, I'm watching it, but one thing I like to do, yeah, I'm observing it. I looked at some of the footage. There's a few clips. Again, looking at this Black Hawk disaster, and I'm just suggesting here, I'm not saying it's fake, but I say it's not real until proven real. Do we have enough information right now to know what happened as reported? Or it said Black Hawk collides with an American flight, 64 on board, 3 soldiers on helicopter, Potomac River, Reagan Airport shut. Do we know if this was an accident? Do we know if it was a terror? We don't have enough information. What I don't do is I don't respond to it as though it's real. Like, you see, I don't think it makes sense to get emotionally entangled in a story and then cloud your judgment. John LeBon, I set the live streams to private once I release the official MP3. Oh, okay. Late night truth episodes. So you have to join. Put a link to johnlebon.com. But I was going to play a clip where you were describing how the people who are stuck in the flat earth have been essentially bamboozled and subject to some brain rot. And there is some truth to that. I've always been hypercritical of the model first types. And some of them are indeed likely disingenuous. For example, Eric Dubai said that there's no 24-hour sun. Nathan Oakley, no 24-hour sun. And they moved the goalpost. In fact, I was suggesting they changed it from flat earth to moving goalpost earther. Because it's like they go to the South Pole and it destroys the model they defended, and they should account for that. And there's no shame in having your model destroyed. You know, we all started on a spinning ball. And whatever your opinion is about that, according to, the scientific methodology, a theory, the best explanation has to be given priority over something that doesn't explain or predict anything. That's why I often say chemtrail theory loses, because you can't predict it. There's no predictability. You can't tell me when they're going to spray the skies, as you claim. You couldn't mark a calendar. But I could look at various websites that look at the weather conditions that would suggest a high likelihood of persistent trails, and I could predict them. They are predicted regularly. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay, it's published on Podbean. So John LeBon's Late Night Truth Lounge discussions are on Podbean if you want to listen to it. I was listening to it earlier today. And like I've said from the beginning, though, putting the model first, what you do is you set yourself up with your cognitive bias to invest in it, to become attached to it, and then you do have the community thing. And model doesn't just apply to shape. I look at for example, the Mandela effect. The people who live in the Mandela affected universe have a model in which reality is very shifty, and that this shift happens retroactively. It happens to some people, not others. But it's the model is like your lens. It's your internal concept of the world. The standard one, the mainstream mediated one, the Truman Show that we're all in, is the spinning ball, heliocentric, we came from apes. And we don't have souls, we have big egos, and right now we're just coping with it. Just trying to cope with the meaninglessness of it all. But my particular model isn't really about shape anyway. But those who did attach themselves to it have resorted to bad memes and bad faith claims and arguments. And there are clusters of beliefs. So if you believe that pandas are fake, there's probably a lot of other beliefs that you have attached to it. And it's not about, like what JLB said, if you still believe in a flat earth model, you probably think that Taylor Swift is a man. Like, that's probably true. There's clusters here. And the problem here, to me, is logical fallacies. And when you have a model, it's generally an argument from authority, the Bible, the TV. You eliminate that, you eliminate these logically fallacious reasons for believing in stuff, and you end up being a non-believer. And being a non-believer is reasonable, especially in 2025. I mean, the special effects are so good. And that's the elephant in the room. I don't even debate people about the world, the cosmology, the shape of the earth, if they're not willing to talk about special effects and the role that special effects have on shaping our perceptions. Van Gogh says, Dubé released cool rap songs, though. Well, I don't listen to Eric Dubé very much, but he was very quick to take other people's research and throw together a video saying the trip to Antarctica was fake. Like, he didn't have enough information to conclude that. And I decided to sit and wait until I had seen enough footage to convince me of something. But I'm not going to treat that like scientific evidence, because all the participants were biased and there was just some shadiness going around the vaping. But I'm not going to say it didn't happen. The burden of proof would have to be on me, and I'd have to go down there and repeat it. But it got us into the discussion of fakeability. And could you fake such a thing? Well, the answer is yes. It's a matter of scale, though. And then who? It's a big question. It's an open discussion. But we're talking about an organization that has a massive budget, that has the facilities to fake moon landings, Mars landings, lunar bases. Who knows what else they're faking? So you would be wrong if you said it wasn't entirely fakeable. We're only being facetious when we say they filmed it in the Las Vegas sphere. But I'm just, at this point, reserving judgment, because they don't even discuss special effects and fakery, and the people on the side of the globe don't know the news is fake. So why do I care about the big picture opinions of people who don't know the news is fake? Like, I don't get my information from the brainwashed. But my position, again, shape agnosticism, it's a tenable position, it's defensible. In fact, you can't, like I say with this helicopter crash and this thing right now, you sitting there in your house, you don't have enough information to know it to be true. You have to sift through what's available first. And I would say the same is true for this entire cosmology thing. We don't have enough information, but the information that is there is likely being withheld I mean, that's something to consider too. I happen to think it's about resources. I mean, if you think about it, if they lie about the news every day or lie in the news and fabricate news, that becomes part of your history. Our collective history is at least 30% fake news. So our history is entirely bent. And if the big liars are willing to bend history, to bend our collective reality, our worldview, what makes you think they wouldn't lie about the maps? I'm wondering, I have a few ideas about it, but my point being, I'm not asserting it to be flat against all contradictory information, all information that would contradict that. And that's where the flat earthers do become somewhat annoying and I would almost say dogmatic. Druth says top 5 worst conspiracy theories: chemtrails, aliens, Mandela effect, QAnon, and 5G. Yes, I agree on all those. And these are clusters. Although aliens aren't a conspiracy theory, they're considered to be a scientific fact now. If you don't believe in aliens, you're not scientific. Mandela effect is the misinformation effect, which is a fascinating phenomenon. And it's important to know about the misinformation effect because it's used on us every single day. The fictional accounts of things, the fictional version of events, things that you imagine, for example, with any, let's say Pearl Harbor, for example, the news footage you've seen and the movies about it, it all gets kind of conflated in your mind. And your memories are malleable. And every time you remember something, it is influenced by whatever it's brought up in the context of. And my point here is that just as the misinformation effect gets people to misremember something, to create a false memory and attach themselves to it because the memory gets filed in the same place as the real memory, the news media does this all the time. It's the ministry of truth using the Mandela effect against us. So the Mandela effect is real in that sense. It's the misinformation effect, and it does alter your internal simulation of the world. Just like simulation theory isn't real, it's not even a theory, but there is a simulation of the world in your mind, and that's what they mess with. The internalized Truman Show. King Ravana says, best conspiracy, the lunar year. Isn't this the year of the snake? I know on the year of the bat, they gave us those quarters with the bowl of bat soup on the back. Lickety Split says, Potomac is the key. Yeah, we'll get into this psyop as it unfolds. I'm just not rushing into it. I'm waiting for a little more information. Now, according to Elon Musk, President Trump has asked SpaceX to bring home the 2 stranded astronauts. He says, we will do so as soon as possible. Terrible that the Biden administration left them there for so long. So I don't think they're truly stranded. I don't know if that's the word that they would use. But the story is, we're talking about the Butch and Suni up there in the space station. They went up there on the Calypso capsule, the Calypso, which is the nymph who kept Odysseus stranded. So we were talking about their space odyssey and how this kind of correlates with the Odyssey and the stranded Odysseus. So this is kind of a story we've been following for some months now. But Trump says he's going to get them down with the help of Musk. And Laura Loomer had responded. She said, wow, how does someone survive in space that long? And my answer is craft services. The ISS is a movie set. And this is one of the questions. This is something too. The other day we were talking about Bart Zabrell and Candace Owens talking about Apollo 11. You can talk about Apollo 11 being fake all day long. But until you talk about the ISS, I don't trust you. You're a shill. That has to be the case. Because Bart Zabrell's argument for focusing on the moon landing is he says, this would bring down the deep state. This is the linchpin. And he remarked on how all of the truthers defend Apollo 11. And that's generally true. They see it as an American achievement. However, they don't talk about the ISS. And what's the difference? Well, Apollo 11 happened decades ago. Everybody's dead. The few people that aren't are close. And then you have this. The ISS is an ongoing psyop connected to every single Musk launch. I mean, these things are all in the same fictional universe. So this is the true linchpin. And the reason why Musk can't call out the moon landing as fake is because he's part of it. But anyway, I'm trying to see if someone can get Candace Owens to address the space station, and I don't think they're allowed to. Yeah, that's great. Bach Precision. Bart Zabral claims China has blackmailed NASA, which sounds iffy. Yeah, it's actually redonkulous. So Bart Zabral says China knows the moon landing was fake, and they're blackmailing NASA into giving them secret technology and secret space program stuff. I'm like, what, Final Cut Pro? Like the 2015 version? Their special effects are crap. I thought China's space station was going to be an improvement over the ISS. It's like, no, they ordered it off of Wish. We need an ISS off of Wish. It's just garbage. But it's a joke. It's like, no, it's not the moon landing that should be exposed right now anyway. It's misdirection. Talk about the ISS. Ryler05 says, the three Abrahamic base are the biggest conspiracy in how they convince people to believe that garbage. Are you talking about religions? Like, I would say that the dominant religion of the day is MSM, mainstream media. That the fictional universe that the media puts us into is the one world religion. And they've just updated things. We have God constructs, Gaia. We have new myths, like the old flood myth is now climate change, but everything's been reinvented for the modern age. WOPR 3354 says misreporting on 5342 and runway 33. I decided to pause on reporting real time because there were some measures put in place where they misreport things about the shooter in order to discredit people who are talking about it. That's why every time there's a shooter, all the main top tier right-wing influencers will say, it's another satanic trans shooter killing Christian children, and it goes viral. And then you get all these reports saying, nope, the shooter was not trans, the shooter was not shooting Christians. It's like, okay, so now all these people are discredited. There are just so many examples. This has been actually routine. It started, I think, back when Joe Olstein's church got shot. Speaking of Mandela effects, is it Joe Olstein or Joel Osteen? That one really bends their minds. Sadly, he wasn't there when the place got shot up. I mean, the shooter, though, was misreported. And then it's just, again, what's what I call truther bait. They put information out there so you run with it, and then you look crazy. And they say, no, we're the authority here. You guys just go home. Plain Decoded says government is religion. I would say so. In a way, I think that there's only one government, and it's mind control. Government by mind control. There's just one. And then I would say government is a subset of mind control, but it's like government, entertainment, media, the academia. It's all part of the same singular system. Verkjan says, the Church of Scientism is so strong its members don't know they're members. They just think they're objective atheists who know the truth and are immune to belief. Yeah, that's a valid point as well. People think because they believe the scientists, they're being scientific. It's like, that's not how it works. There's supposed to be a methodology here. All right, here we have, appreciate it very much. Marcel brings in 5 blue wrenches. Joe Santo, Harmon Walker, Flat Bob, RJ have all received the coveted blue titanium wrench. Abuse the power responsibly. NDB says the video looks like the helicopter chased down the plane and hit it on purpose. Well, the timing of it to me is suspect because it's a tragedy. It's a spectacle. It's an explosion in the sky. It's the same week of the Challenger, Kobe Bryant, Columbia, the destruction of the Falcon and Dragon's Fire, some ritualistic immolation of these effigies in the sky. So looking at it in this context, I'm expecting this to be some kind of psyop and not an accident, but we'll see. And what's going to give it away? Well, if it's an engineered event, there's going to be some immediate agenda. It's going to be partisan. Left is going to have one interpretation, right's going to have another. There's going to be likely predictive or concurrent programming that goes along with it. So is this something that you've just seen in the movies? Is it something in the movies right now? In fact, I might go watch this new Mark Wahlberg movie. I think it's something about a hijacked plane. I'm going to check it out tomorrow. Just doing my homework. Because there's no meaningful distinction between Hollywood and entertainment. Lickety Split says boat versus bridge, helicopter versus plane on Potomac. And again, the date 128, Kobe Bryant, the timestamp 128 when the dolly hit the bridge, Leave the World Behind about planes falling from the sky comes out on 12/8 or 128. Starring Julia Roberts, born 10/28. Matthew Perry's in the movie. He dies 10/28. He's in the movie because he's in Friends. 10/28, 128, Leave the World Behind. These have been consistently associated with these very themes. Blackout, stuff falling from the skies, the world ending. 10/28 is Bill Gates' birthday, by the way. The date of the first Q drop. WOPR says nobody died, nobody cried. Well, it's probably premature. Like right now. Like you can't automatically say nobody died. You can't automatically say it's fake. You can say it's not real until proven real, fake until proven real in most instances, if it has the hallmarks of a hoax. But right now, I don't know. It depends on how comfortable you are. The timing of it makes me suspect it. In fact, speaking of JLB, he had another video where he was asking the question, does Elon Musk actually land his rocket on that arm, that lander where the arm grabs it out of the sky? And it was an interesting conversation because people are looking at it, asking, is this real? Is the crowd really there? Are they really launching things? And it got me thinking. Here it is. Is SpaceX a hoax? Can a machine catch the return rocket? So I have a point that I made here, because when we're calling things fake, we do so with reason. We criticize people for believing with no reason. Well, we should also be critical of those who call it fake with no reason. So in this case, there are people who have doubts as to whether or not Elon Musk is able to accomplish some of these things. And my basic take on it is this: when it comes to outer space, when it comes to NASA fakery, it's not all fakery. Like, obviously, there's quite a lot of stuff that gets done under the cover of NASA. I'm suggesting that anything above the Kármán line is fake. 62 miles up. Anything above 62 miles, that would be something I consider to be fake. But as a rule, rocket launches are outside the realm of fakeability if they're performed in front of audiences or near population centers. Rockets exist. Rockets that land exist. People near these places see them, hear them, record them. There's plenty to substantiate that they're launching rockets. Now, do they go to space and all the rest? Well, that's the part that I think is up for debate here. But it got me thinking about something from when I was a kid. The very first reusable rocket, the very first one, was tested here in New Mexico at White Sands. And my grandfather went. I have a link here. It was called the Delta Clipper Experimental, the DCX. The world's first reusable rocket. And I wasn't able to go because I was at school. But the idea of reusable rockets is not new. You can see these in like the Godzilla movies in the 60s. Werner von Braun, I think, had designs for this. They made videos for it. So the idea of rockets that are reusable is not new at all. So it's entirely plausible that 90% of what you see here is truly being done as advertised. But there's other questions, obviously. Like, is it really a rocket designed to go to space, or is it a stylized, rigid blimp? In other words, are we looking at stylized blimps with engines and fireworks and a bunch of theater? Or is it a legitimate rocket designed to go to so-called outer space? Going through your comments. All right, let's see here. Let me just play a clip here. Let's play a clip here. Is SpaceX a hoax? And I'll put a link to the video in the notes.
SpaceX catching the rocket, this device they've got to catch the rocket. Do you think it's real or do you think it's a hoax? Let's take a look at some of this footage. Alright, as you can see there, they launched the rocket. So the reason I'm asking this question, and we'll look at this footage, and I've got some more footage I want you to see as well, is because I mix in some strange circles on the internet, and I mix with some rather bizarre people, it has to be said. And some of these people are very intelligent, very insightful, and I quite like listening to their thoughts on things.
Okay, I'll put a link below. Great comments. There's quite a lot here, but I think what we can say is that we have to be very nuanced about what we call fake. The word fake is lacking in nuance. Like, so what part of it is fake? Get into the that's why I like talking about things like the final experiment. How much of it is fakeable? And if you don't know it's fakeable, then obviously you're dupable to a higher degree. That's why I put out a couple of blog posts last week about robots that bleed, robots that cry, hyper-realistic simulation dolls used for training and surgical purposes. Not to mention shock value. They sell dummies that are blown up by bombs with their entrails everywhere, so they can prepare people psychologically for the real thing. Okay, let us continue here. I'm going through some comments. NWO says space is fake. There are videos of other rockets being fake CGI. At this point, CGI is getting too real to tell. That's a good point. Absolutely good point. Now, as far as the people there in person watching it, yeah, that could be fake. It's all fakeable technically. Frederick says, I've seen one live. You do see it, but it feels off, like it's a trick. My guess is some sort of projection, but not sure. Tomfoolery says, it would be easier for me to auto-hoax these launches and catches if they were done out at sea away from public view. But since they announce the launches ahead of time and you can watch them yourself, I'd have to say no. Unless we're suggesting every eyewitness is in on it, which seems like a stretch. Now, that's a good point there. And to that, I would also add other people's experiences, other people's sightings don't count as evidence. But when you have lots of videos, lots of sources, and they all correspond, yeah, of course, the burden of proof gets to be met pretty quickly. But when it comes to other stuff like the ISS, I don't personally think that you can say that you can claim to know it's real because a lot of people have seen a light in the sky. And I've been harping on this for a couple of years now because people are really quick to show me a video of an airplane, and they'll say that's the ISS. And it's like, well, no, I don't think it is. And they'll say, well, look, the app says there's going to be a light in the sky at this time. And it becomes very much like, well, maybe it's the ISS, maybe it's not. And they'll often say, I don't believe in the space station, but there it is. So it gets really confusing. So I decided that this is not enough evidence. There has to be more to it. And then we had this thing with drones in New Jersey. A huge drone panic. Everyone was saying drones. Well, none of the drones were drones. They were all airplanes. And the way this was determined is people started taking the metadata and matching it up with the flight trackers. And they were able to ascertain that none of the drones were drones. Zero. Mass panic over nothing. So I think it's safe for me to say that nobody has seen the ISS, at least when they show me a video, if they don't have that other information, I have to say it's planes, it's an airplane, until proven otherwise. It's a pretty high standard of evidence. You have to meet it if you're going to say it's the space station, because it's such an important sighting if real. If real, the ISS is proof of low Earth orbit, proof that we're on a ball, and it must account for the transit points at those times. So I don't think we should be flippant about it. But when people say, well, we all seen a light, lots of people seen a light, I'm like, well, lots of people saw drones. Lots of people saw drones in New Jersey. Doesn't mean they were drones. But they see a light and they're predisposed to believe it's ISS, and their reasoning comes down to maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I call it maybe Bigfoot logic. You go camping with your friend believes in Bigfoot. You both hear squirrels in the tree at night. Your friend says, well, maybe it was Bigfoot. And he's able to spread the rumor, and all his friends are like, well, maybe I heard Bigfoot too. So a lot of maybe Bigfoot types, people who heard a noise and they're predisposed to believe in Bigfoot, they want to believe in it, they start a rumor there is Bigfoot. This is how the whole rumor of underwater alien craft has been spread. It's just people talking about other people's sightings. It's not a source of evidence. It's not an authority. But the skepticism is important, but it also has to be reasonable, and it has to be, well, it has to acknowledge the facts. So I do believe in rockets. I do believe in reusable rockets. Do I believe rockets go to space? No. I think their primary purpose is symbolic. In all honesty, and this is my starting point for this entire conversation, I came to the conclusion, it seems to me, that NASA, the space program, and SpaceX are part of the religion of Nasatology. It's the worldview we have communicated to us through the MSM, which is functionally like a Bible. But our concept of heaven has been augmented and replaced with space. And all the different competing religions, they all believe in outer space. But the rocket, in my opinion, and this is based on, I guess, syncretism, comparing the symbolism, the iconography, the names of the rockets, etc. I would argue that the rocket is actually a stylized obelisk, like the Washington Monument, like the obelisk that the popes pray to over there in the Vatican. The obelisk is a rocket. I mean, the rocket is an obelisk. They're kind of synonymous symbols. This was made very clear to me on the 60th anniversary of Apollo 11, when they projected the Saturn V onto the Washington Monument. But it's religious pageantry. It's the symbol of their Earth god. Truman B3000 says, SpaceX's latest explosions look like fireworks raining down, look fake. So many witnesses, likely bot accounts. Yeah, there's that. And they've been making the point that Elon Musk is endangering airplanes, that the space junk is causing planes to make changes to their flight paths. They have to divert. And this goes along with the story. I've said for some time that Musk is here to destroy cyberspace and outer space. And he's an example. Like, this is what happens if you let one person get so rich that they can destroy entire systems. So the richest man in the world is destroying cyberspace with mind junk and outer space with space junk. These are intentional correlations. What's up, Conscious Reality? Thank you for joining. Yeah, you're pretty much right, Marcel. We're talking about a fertility cult. Worship of the generative powers of nature. They literally worship the act of procreation. And it's a mystery school thing. NASA is an Egyptian mystery school. And I don't know how initiated, how high up these various clowns are, the ones who do the performance art of pretending to be in space. Like, are they high priests? Or are they just puppets of the high priesthood? I'm not sure. I happen to think they're just a bunch of actors. They're psyop operatives, crisis actors, basically in space. Do I think that they are initiates into the deeper mysteries? I kind of don't think so. I don't think so. WOPR says, gotta wear my helmet for space junk. Well, I was suggesting that space junk helmets should be worn by people who believe in space junk. Like, if you don't believe in it, you don't have to wear them. But the people who believe in this stuff, like, why aren't you putting your kids in helmets? How do you sleep at night? Those of you who believe in nukes, do you do duck and cover drills? Do you genuflect on the floor, like on all fours? Facing the mushroom cloud? It's just a god construct. It's a war god that atheists will believe in. What's up with the crash at Reagan Airport? Well, I was talking about it a little bit. We're waiting for all the information to come out. The basic headlines as of now. Black Hawk collides into American flight, 64 on board. Potomac River, Reagan Airport shut. My initial takeaway from this is I came in here tonight and my notes were all about the significance of this week. The Challenger explosion, 128. Kobe Bryant, was it Challenger on 126? Kobe Bryant, 128. This whole week, the Columbia explosion. And the significance of this week being something correlating to things in the sky exploding, immolations. I was like, is this some kind of ritual? And I would even connect it to the starship that exploded on 2/2/2021. We've analyzed these various events, but we've been looking at this specific week for some time. And the week that Musk blew up the Falcon, we were already talking about it earlier that January. We said, watch the end of January. They're going to blow something up above our heads, some kind of immolation in the sky. So as far as this event, I don't know. But the timing of it has me questioning it initially. So Challenger explosion, January 28th, 1986. Okay, January 28th. And Kobe's explosion had tons of predictive programming. There was, like, for example, his was 126, January 26th. There was this cartoon called Legends of Chamberlain Heights, where Kobe Bryant's in a helicopter that crashes. He was in a commercial where he's confronting, looks like he's talking to the devil, and then he confronts Kanye West. And West gets away in a helicopter, and Kobe has this basketball bomb that blows up the helicopter. Okay, he was pronounced dead on 128. Interesting. So the date and the timing of it makes me question it. 128, again, has a great deal of significance to leave the world behind, all about planes falling. Conscious Reality says Kobe Bryant, 12620 on Sunday, 5 years later, same day, 126/2025. Well, I think there's something to this whole week. I really do. And we're getting close to the Super Bowl, which usually happens on Candlemas. But as far as the explosion, as far as what it means, something about the effigies exploding, I'm not quite sure. But I know that this is likely some kind of a loosh harvest. A loosh harvest and a psyop that will steer the news for the next few days. I mean, if your starting point is, I'm going to assume it's real until I'm convinced that it's fake, well, the news isn't going to show you anything ever that contradicts any of their stories. They never do corrections. They never admit to their lies. So if you're waiting for a reason to disbelieve and you're going to believe by default, then your nose is pressed up against the screen and you're treating your television as a sensory apparatus. It's a filter for your entire reality. You're in the Truman Show. I take the position of socially distance yourself from the screen 6 feet, maybe 72 hours before you have a firm opinion about something. Ask my opinion about the crash, whether I believe it's real, on Saturday. Ask my opinion about the shape of the earth in 2030. Like, I'm suspending judgment. WAP says, what if this is a current distraction? What's really going on? I don't know about that necessarily. People always accuse things of being distractions, but I mean, you may have a point. It's like the current thing. But what are they distracting us from? Other distractions that have worn off. It's just distraction after distraction. It's not like there's anything important. It's like we're looking at a fabricated history being enacted in front of us, being played out day by day, making history. And so much of it is fake. I say 30%. That's a conservative estimate. And one other point, even if they're only faking 5% of the news stories, and 5% of these big tragic events are fake, even if it's that small percent, note how much attention these are given, the focus they're given, and how all the other news follows in their wake. So the most influential stories are fake. So they don't have to fake everything. So again, I'm not saying everything is fake. I'm not lazy like that. What I am saying is that the fakery is a significant factor in worldview formation. It directs our perceptions. It's the lie world order. Snake year started today, says Conscious Reality. You remember when Kobe Bryant crashed, there was all that talk about the snake, like Black Mamba, and a few other things, but there was a lot of snake stuff at the time we were talking about. I'll have to go back and look. Lean Diaz says, some alleged footage showed a rip in the side of a SpaceX rocket, as in Blimpy. I saw that. Well, I have a few theories about this. One of the early rocket pioneers in Russia, his name was Konstantin. And Konstantin is the one who talked about mankind becoming multiplanetary. He believed that space was our destiny. He believed in cosmism and panpsychism, the universe is intelligent. But they kind of mystified space. And they were deliberately, these Russian rocket scientists at the time, way before the moon landing, were conceptualizing space as sort of a replacement heaven. But this Constantine character I refer to was working on these steel dirigibles, like rigid blimps. And he never got backing for it. But I look at those and I think about it, and I'm like, maybe that is how they've been faking a lot of the spectacle for the masses. So you're looking at what looks to be a big, powerful rocket ready to go to the moon, but in reality, it's just a blimp, basically a cylindrical blimp. And I saw this tweet by Elon Musk where he said, blimps are cool. Some wisdom from Elon Musk. Blimps are cool. And it was a Goodyear. Let's see if I can find that exact tweet. And I turned the image sideways. Here it is. Blimps are... Oh, here we go. No, he said blimps rock. Blimps rock. Elon Musk on X. And he posted this picture of a blimp. And so if you can just imagine a blimp going perpendicular to the Earth, going straight up, propelled, jet-assisted takeoff, which is, I think, the thing that Jack Parsons was really known for. You put some fireworks, put some theater, have a CGI clip for when it reaches space. You could fake it with a blimp. Conscious Reality says, I was about to type the Black Mamba. Yeah, the Black Mamba, the snake. So there's got to be something here. The early news cycle, in early 2020, back when a lot of us were still questioning if the virus story was going to go turn into something, I was actually convinced that it was going to go away, that a Kardashian was going to have a wardrobe fail. But anyway, here's Musk acknowledging that blimps rock. And yeah, it does look to me like essentially a rocket, just sideways. But again, I'm not in denial of the existence, but I'm looking at the stuff as like theater. Like you're looking at a 33-story tower with 33 engines. And what is the significance of 33? Well, if you look at these space agencies as mystery schools and space travel as allegory for higher states of consciousness, And if you look at the obelisk rocket for what it is, these numbers all make perfect sense. And it has to do with the ascension of the soul. Sun god stuff. Van Gogh says, Donald Trump's plan to destroy nuclear missiles with space lasers. Financial Times. Interesting. I'll take a look. Musk and Trump teaming together in Space Force. It's all really intriguing, but this is all scripted. Like we were talking about, Musk comes out of a Werner von Braun novel from this guy who colonizes Mars called the Elon. But Trump comes out of Trackdown. Remember, Trackdown foreshadowed this, where a character named Trump, a con man, convinces a town that they need a wall to defend them from a cosmic threat. Well, here's Trump. I'll protect you from the aliens, the illegal aliens. Build the wall. I'll protect you from the aliens, Space Force, the cosmic threat. This is where it's at. It says IPS was vindicated. Trump said the drones in New Jersey was a big nothing burger. Yeah, there weren't any. And I'm glad it happened because it caused me to look closer at how people make these claims. And now, if somebody claims that they've seen an alien spacecraft, a chemtrail, a drone, an unmarked military jet spraying the sky, you can just tell them, I don't believe you. Give me the metadata for your photo, and let me cross-reference it with the local flights and these flight trackers. Or if they don't do that, you just ignore them, in fact. So, in other words, if somebody has an image of something, a video of something, if they don't have all that information, date, time, location, direction, you can just say that you don't accept it. You can reject it. We need to start rejecting bad claims and bad evidence. You don't need to debate it. You don't need to entertain it. You can just reject it. There's not enough time. The reason why most people are submerged in the sea of irrelevance is that they don't have a good process for going through fake news and fake information, and they drown. They reach for blue checks to keep their head above water, above the sea of irrelevance. And here we are on this raft. And it's because we have good heuristics. We have a methodology and a process. I call the IPS a fake news wood chipper. This is where it's at. It says, IPS, drop a documentary debunking chemtrails. Hey, I'll do it. Absolutely. I was actually working on one tonight. I have a video I'm doing. It's going to be about a 25, 30-minute breakdown on Elon Musk's world stage persona. He's a Frankenstein. He's a Frankenstein creation, just like they all are. But I'll put that in my notes. I will do one. I have a special axe to grind with chemtrails. I happen to think chemtrails are something of a recruitment tool by the intelligence agencies to filter out the people who don't trust mainstream and put them into a controllable paradigm. It's like, oh, these guys here, they're noticing that these are just shadows on the wall. So they move them into an alternate cave, alternate shadows. It's like, no, you should be exiting the cave altogether. Conscious Reality says, I can't help but to compare Trump to Hitler, history repeating itself with immigrants being removed, and the Elon Roman Empire thing, and the eugenics. You know, I actually said this to some family members a few years ago, and I'm not an alarmist. But I'm looking at how history doesn't repeat, it rhymes, Mark Twain. And I was suggesting that 30 years from now, the textbooks are going to look back at Trump and his hair and Q the way that I grew up in school. We looked at Hitler and his hair and the swastika. That the Q is going to be demonized and turned into this evil symbol, and that Trump is going to be, in retrospect, he's going to be turned into something. Like, I'm saying he's a historic analog, and it's designed this way. This is where it's at. It says, chemtrails and Mandela, let's put those stories to bed, Tim. Only IPS can do it. Yeah, let's put chemtrails and Mandela effects to bed, because these are, in fact, myths. These are bedtime stories. These are fictions. also indicative of somebody's failure to remove certain logical fallacies from their frame of reference. Like, you shouldn't be falling for certain things. You shouldn't fall for loaded questions. You should reject appeals to authority, appeals to ignorance, reject the burden of proof when it's not yours. You have to have a mental immune system, or you'll fall prey to anything. And if you can catch any mind virus spread by anybody, then you have mind aids. And the government gave you mind aids in school so that you would be programmable into the future. Luckily, there's a cure. It's called IPS. This is where it's at. It says auto hoaxing is catching on. Well, look, the first thing that needs to happen is people need to understand, I think, that disbelief by default makes sense logically and it's rational, and that you're under no obligation to believe the instant it's reported. Like, you're not downloading headlines like, let me just believe. No, you actually have the obligation to pause and parse through it. To do otherwise is to be a mindless believer and somebody who's easy to propagandize and influence. Shifting gears, IPS think tank, South Pole still going? I've been thinking about it because now I have access to Sora AI and I have a lot of scripts. I've been thinking about it. I'm interested. In fact, I would probably start another season of South Pole if I had a couple of other people on board, but they would need to have access to either Sora or some animation or Photoshop. But as far as like the voices and all that, we're likely going to use AI. A lot of people have reservations against AI, but honestly, it's a leveler of the playing field. And if it's a choice between not producing it because we don't have time and the labor pool, or producing it using what's available, I will use what's available. Bach Precision says, all the MAGA people will be interviewed in their 80s and will disavow like old Germans today to Adolf and his party. Conscious Reality says, also the welfare program put in place by Roosevelt, now taken away by Trump. Interesting. Yeah, it's all design. Musk doing the Nazi salute, what kind of gaslighting is that? And supposedly, he's banning people on X who are calling it out. For example, and who was this? Gematria Effect News. Wow, Zach Hubbard, Josh Greenberg. He said, my X account was taken down without an explanation. Do you think it was for pointing out that Musk's Nazi salute tribute to Werner von Braun? Or was it one of the people I called out? Or is it the NFL not liking me exposed their Super Bowl? So he got suspended from X. Fascinating. I don't think I would get suspended because I'm a paying customer. I pay on X for certain perks, and so I can live stream video there and archive it there. So it's worth it to me. And if they were to ban me, I would sue, or I would demand a refund. Yeah, the ADL defending Musk makes no sense. Like, I don't want to hear from the ADL about bowl cuts, AOK signs, numbers. I don't want to hear the ADL complain about being offended by anything connected to Hitler or swastikas or Mein Kampf, because they just gave a pass to somebody who, look, even if Elon Musk was just exuberant and just made this gesture, you would be disingenuous if you were trying to say he's not a symbolic figurehead representing these ideas. A replacement theory. Replacement theory, the idea that immigrants are being brought in to replace white Americans. Like, this type of stuff is all Musk's stock and trade. And if you look at what he's platformed, what he's given a voice to, what he's retweeted, no, it's silly to think that that wasn't an explicit dog whistle. And add on to this, in Netflix's The Madness, the billionaire who's based on Musk, and it's not just me saying this now, there are multiple articles, Vanity Fair even, they're all saying that it's based on Musk. So this billionaire in The Madness who's killed, and his killer is protected in the hood, because he killed a CEO. He killed one of the bad guys, a racist or something. But the CEO who's funding the racists is based on Musk, and he's specifically funding Nazis on the internet, causing them to go violent. And that's called, quote, the madness. So it's very consistent with his world stage persona, which is connected to these fictional representations of this person. It makes perfect sense. It's on brand for him to do that hand sign. And then also also you can connect Musk to Henry Ford. There's been, like, I'm talking about this Frankenstein character, Werner von Braun, Iron Man, Willy Wonka. You could throw in Henry Ford. Henry Ford and Elon Musk, both owning these publications and platforming what is called, quote, anti-Semitism. Now, do I believe he's a Nazi, anti-Semite? No, I'm just saying that this is what is being presented. If I was an alien anthropologist and nobody's telling me what to think, this is what I would arrive at. I would say, yeah, this is very on brand for this character, who is in fact a fiction who came out of a book written by a Nazi, Werner von Braun. This is where it's at. It says channels that cover the NFL are auto-hoaxing the games. I've been seeing that. I even saw Kevin Zorbo, who's a pretty big channel and figurehead on the QAnon right, but calling NFL out as faking it. And that's a big sacred cow. You can tell people, yeah, 9/11 was a drill and a simulation, and everybody fell for it. And you might get some people to look into it, but if you say sports is rigged, even the people who know reality is rigged, and some of these people even suspect that everything is rigged and it's a big simulation, they still think sports are true and objective. It's a sacred cow. But the point of it here is that what isn't riggable? I mean, you're talking about a totally controlled worldview where all of the major avenues of mass influence, where you're going to reach millions of people, are tightly controlled endeavors. It's all the production companies, all the news media outlets. So obviously the sports are co-opted for propaganda purposes. I don't know how much on the field is fakeable, but all the drama outside of the field, fake. Like Tyreek Hill getting pulled out of his car on the way to the Miami Dolphins game. Yeah, that was meant to get people to look at Netflix Rebel Ridge. People had that as their frame of reference. Like, oh, this is just like Rebel Ridge. And that, of course, goes pretty deep into this multi-layered story where they're getting the public's perceptions towards the police to reach certain conclusions. Like, so for example, Rebel Ridge was all about systemic racism within the police departments. And so that they give you a real life example of it. You could be rich, powerful, or rather rich and influential and beloved football player, but you're still going to be treated like garbage and a non-human by the police. Meek Willie says, what are they hiding? What is the true shape of the earth? What's the shape of the universe? Let's say the earth gets smacked by a planet killer asteroid and the earth is no more. What's next? Well, the universe is flat. I mean, we're all by default flat universers. What's at the edge of the universe? Before you ask me, what's at the edge of the flat earth, I'm going to say, what's at the edge of the universe? Because we both agree, I don't know. The difference is, my I don't know is a few thousand miles away. Your I don't know is trillions of light years away. And you think you know what's from a few thousand miles away all the way out to the edges of this universe. And I'm saying, no, that's a false sense of security about what we do know. That space is a metaphor for the space between our ears, and they are just essentially worldview shapers. So outer space, I don't know. I believe it's mostly science fiction. And the people who are presenting us the science fiction are giving us a worldview, and they're able to say, this is the world, this is the game board, this is all there is. And I question it. For one thing, the ISS is obviously a hoax, but what are they showing us? Well, they're showing us a ball Earth, but maybe the reason why they're giving us a simulation is they're hiding continents. Maybe they're hiding Atlantis, and the Atlanteans rule this place, and they don't want us to know that they exist. This is where it's at. It says the NFL can be faked on the field. Is the NFL part of the New World Order? I think so. I think it's safe to say that the NFL is a propaganda platform, and it has many purposes, a myriad of purposes. But as far as fakeability, that whole thing with Lamar Hamlin dying on the field, everybody kneeling, and then he's resurrected, and the only guy not kneeling is wearing a 33 on his jersey, and his name is Neil. Like all kinds of weirdness. And then at 3:30 in the morning, he had made $3.3 million on his charity, and he's always about the number 3. Like, what's with all this ritual stuff around NFL? All the stuff that is clearly some kind of occult, Masonic, whatever you want to call it, ceremony being done under the cover of a game. The Blackout Bowl, Super Bowl 47. If you remember, it went dark for 33 minutes. And then the Super Bowl halftime shows are generally replete with mystery school symbolism. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video before the Super Bowl because I have a prediction. I have a prediction about the halftime show based on previous halftime shows and what I think is clear evidence of the Gnostic Catholic Mass being performed at halftime. The great rite of witchcraft. Just as a brief summary, Rihanna coming down from the sky, pregnant, moon bump, the baby bump in red. The male dancers in white. So the red and the white are highly symbolic. You're talking about in the Thelemic cult, it's the symbolizes the Christ in Magdalene. The following Super Bowl, you had Usher in white with a phoenix. The phoenix is another Christ symbol. So you have Usher in white, male, Alicia Keys, the female performer, head to toe in red. So again, this repeated theme of red and white. And it ties again to this Christ Magdalene thing. And at the time, I was talking about this Kendrick Lamar performance for Heart Part 5. And this all correlated to Lamar Hamlin and the heart attack thing. But in this case, it's Kendrick Lamar performing in white with a crown of thorns, surrounded by female dancers in red. And they smear him in blood. And again, this is all connected to this thing called the Gnostic Catholic Mass. It's not Satanists that run the world. That's way too simplistic. They seem to worship nature and the life force itself, specifically the act of procreation. It's a fertility cult thing at its core. The Super Bowl mystery Babylon fertility rite. So my point here is Kendrick Lamar is going to be at the next Super Bowl. And when I looked at the story, I looked him up, NFL, and there he is posing in front of a giant American flag, and all you see behind him is red and white. So I have some idea of where it's going because of how often he's represented himself as a black Christ. And that's what these previous ceremonies are all tying into. And it ties into a very specific set of ritual ceremonial trappings that I'm suggesting I can more or less predict what's about to occur. At least in terms of the major themes and the colors and symbols. So I'm going to put out a video before just to give a little bit of an idea of what to expect. I'm going through your comments. Van Gogh says, Kendrick Lamar and SZA for the halftime show. Has anyone discussed the plane-helicopter collision? I talked about it at the beginning. I don't have a lot of information yet other than the basic headlines, but I did bring up that this happens in the context of this week of the Challenger explosion, the Kobe Bryant explosion, and a few other significant explosions, immolations, fiery explosions in the sky. And I was just saying this is an indication that this could be some type of a Challenger-like event on the scale of its impact. Also, Year of the Snake. Does this connect to Kobe Bryant? Black Mamba, perhaps. Black Hawk helicopter. So there's another Kobe Bryant tie-in. Black Hawk collides into American flight. 3 soldiers on the helicopter. Reagan airport shut. So do I? My basic take on it is if it's extraordinary, I consider it to be fake until proven real. Is this extraordinary? Very. The timing of it, even more suspect. The elements of the story, a helicopter, and the timing, yeah, I'm leaning here towards likely some type of a psyop. Van Gogh says a lot of the comments on X about the collision are saying it looks like a drone attack, not an accident. Shocking. Yeah, exactly. So one side's going to say accident. Others are going to say perhaps a conspiracy, a terror attack. The location of it, highly suspect. But given everything else, I'm kind of leaning toward. Also, just last week, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about unauthorized drones. So it seems to me that this is probably a hoax. It's probably a major psyop on the scale of as far as the amount of news it's going to take up, the amount of oxygen this story is going to take up. It's going to be Challenger. It's going to be Kobe Bryant. It's going to be a big, big story. I'm still looking at it though, and I think by tomorrow we'll have more information. Again, this is likely going to tie in to Leave the World Behind, but I'm going to watch a movie tomorrow, and it's got Mark Wahlberg in it, and it has to do with a hijacked plane. Let me see if I can get the story. Oh, Flight Risk. Okay, so Flight Risk just came out. So I'm not sure what's in the story. Flight Risk. I have a trailer here, but I'm going to see if I can get a synopsis. Because like we said with the Homestead movie and Los Angeles, it's going to get nuked. These are examples of concurrent programming. And so I'm saying let's see what's happening in the fictional universe since it overlaps the mainstream media universe. Yeah, you're welcome to call in. Okay, plot. U.S. Marshal arrests an accountant. They're getting a small airplane so they can take him to New York City. Pilot wakes up shackled to a rack. Okay, so it's a hijack movie. Hijacking, terrorism, something else. Released in the United States on January 24th. Originally set to be released on 10/28. Okay, so I'm not sure what it's about, but I'm going to check it out anyway because I think I was going to watch this suggesting that, this is my homework. This is my homework. I'm going to go watch this movie where Mark Wahlberg is in some kind of a hijacking plane crash movie to see if it relates to what's happening in the present news cycle. But yeah, I have about 10 more minutes if you want to call in. It is 505-510-4226. Lickety says Jan Wahlberg. Well, he was in this other one called Infinite that I watched recently. About serial reincarnation. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay? I might, let me go ahead and double check my mic setting. You might need to call right back. Angst G says, the Homestead movie sucked and was some kind of weird marketing to watch a series spinoff. Okay, there you are. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can I be heard?
Yes. Lima Charlie, what's going on?
Hi. This is Tinkerbell. I'm so grateful that you're on, and thank you so much. I did want to check in with you all because I will try to make this brief, but I reached out to a friend who I like to have a lot of different people who I know involved in different things because it helps me understand and have a better picture of truth, right? You have to know everything. I'd rather have too much information than not enough. So I spoke with someone I know after the president was installed, and checked in. I know that they had affiliation and ties with January 6th and had strong feelings about it. And we were in our discussion, it had come up that they believed that something was going to happen that was kind of like a 9/11 thing. And I was like, well, I'm in New York City. I hope it's not going to happen here. They said, no, I don't think it's going to happen there. Maybe something like Baltimore. And I was like, interesting. So I went and celebrated the Lunar New Year in Chinatown in Manhattan and rode the ferry and, a lot of confetti and the aftermath, and got home. And a pilot friend of mine texted me and was like, did you see what just happened? And I was like, no, I'm putting my child to bed. I'm a single parent, and I often tune into your stream and other things after bedtime when I have time to myself. So I tuned in immediately to the broadcastify of, and I looked on Reddit in the aviation groups I'm in. And in any case, listening to the real-time, boots on the ground situation, and there is a clip of the video, and it looks like the helicopter is just flying into it on purpose. That's just from very webcam or whatever they have set up, a security cam somewhere in the vicinity. But I thought when I saw that you were on live, and I was like, I wonder if he's discussing this, because I did have that conversation, and on this broadcastify of the first responders at the scene, they were calling in Baltimore County, and I was like, interesting. Interesting
Broadcastify.
information.
So Broadcastify is where you get a scanner and
Yeah.
you can hear what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, I followed the link, so it was really the immediate response of, that it's a very terrible situation. The water's very cold and icy. It was a fireball and then a crash. They were not pulling out a lot of survivors. And Tim, I'd love to talk to you more in the future about your work in death care. You and I have had different roles in that area of service for people. But understanding, and through some of my training in the past, like incident command, etc., I was really interested to hear what the hell was going on down there. And they were setting up a morgue, and they've called off EMS, and then I don't think there are really any survivors. But I was interested because when I heard Baltimore County being contacted, and then that person just a week prior had brought up that they thought there was going to be some kind of psyop.
Okay.
So
Someone you talked
right,
to,
Baltimore is the.
suggested that there could be a psyop. See, this is interesting. So for people, they're having a slightly hard time hearing you, but what you're bringing up here makes me think that if something like this is a psyop, these things are generally done under the cover of a drill, where you need the drill there to get the participants in place, or they use that as a cover to get a closed movie set. And it's so compartmentalized that only those with security clearance are going to be in these specific areas. And if they're setting up entire, field morgues and everything, I don't know, they could be using dummies. We don't know enough information from the outside to know if it was a drill or not. And for those participating in a simulation, when it comes to these things, there's no way that we would know. We're not firsthand witnesses. So I'm just kind of at this point, I'm open to it being a drill.
I was here on 9/11, here in New York City on 9/11 for the event, and there was a drill, and you've talked about this, and it's absolutely true, that you can hear the recordings where the pilots are saying, is this real life? Yes, it's real life. The plane really did that. Well, that was what was reported. But as far as this goes, I think it's very interesting to me, just because I know that people throughout the country or the world can read about 9/11 and read the 9/11 Commission report and watch videos of independent researchers and seek their own truth, which we all should always be doing, right, all the time, no matter what, even with interactions with people. It takes a long time to get to know someone. But this particular situation, and that the word, that someone suggested it could be something in Baltimore area, And early on, I also want to add, and you guys can try to find this out. I won't have time. I'm in school full time, and my semester just started. I have class tomorrow, but uh, I heard that there was a VIP potentially on the helicopter.
Okay,
So
okay.
they
Yeah,
say
I
this
I
through
heard
truth,
that it was a Black Hawk for transporting VIPs. So it adds a level of intrigue to it. So I'm gonna wait
right?
to
I
decide
know, it's
what I
pretty
think, but
fascinating. So I just wanted to, I didn't know.
yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for holding space. I just uh, popped on late and I didn't know if you had covered it, but of course you did. And I'm curious to see what the media spin will be because I did listen myself to what was transpiring, have a little bit of that weird, that person said that thing and then this thing happened.
Yeah, that is strange, and I'm
So I
glad you brought up
wonder,
Broadcastify. For people who don't know, Broadcastify is a great resource. If there's a psyop happening in your region or a big event and you suspect it, you can tune in and see what is being talked about on local radio traffic, just to see.
and they won't get off of the channel for a while. I would say it was about 90 minutes before they switched channels, and that was after they, it was the immediate response. So you're really going to hear what's happening with operations and uh, the composure of the people. It's very sad. Obviously, this is a tragic thing to happen when you're just at work one night, right, going through the motions. Um, so my heart goes out to those people who are impacted. But I'm also very curious to see how the media spins this, especially with the week we've had with the federal incoming administration and
Yeah,
this strange chaos that
and,
has ensued.
and all the drones and everything else. So yeah, I think it's just the latest current thing.
Yes,
I'm leaning towards psyop until proven real, but I'm gonna wait until tomorrow and see what other clues come up. But appreciate the call very much, and
thank
call
you
back
so much.
anyway.
Love this stream, and thanks everybody who's in the comments who's also interesting. Have a great Lunar New Year. Good night.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That is Thinkerbell, who knows somebody who alluded to the potential of something happening in that area. And something has happened. And she was scanning her local Broadcastify, so there's a lot of buzz, a lot of activity. So it's called Broadcastify. In Broadcastify, you enter your zip code, and you can listen locally. I followed it in 2020 for a lot of the riots, to see what was being said. Kenosha, we were listening to Kenosha on Broadcastify. So it says Mark Wahlberg, flight risk, y'all need a pilot. And it's got a plane falling, one eye symbolism. I mean, this is just likely a coincidence that this movie just came out. But I don't believe in coincidences on the world stage. Everything that happens in the mainstream media fictional universe is mirrored in the entertainment real time in a prophetic way. And for years, this has confused people who are trying to figure out what's with all these weird coincidences between entertainment and news. And recently, we've come to the right answer and the explanation for this reoccurring phenomenon. And that is all mainstream entertainment platforms and production companies have been co-opted by world government for the singular purpose of synchronizing all of our minds and our perceptions in concert with incoming fake news events that shape the news cycle, that bend our history in a way conducive to the interests of the one world government. Also, FBI is doing their nuclear incident drills in New York. So there's all these drills going on until the end of this month. So that was something we've been looking at. So they have all these agencies out there simulating major disasters. We have the drone hype. And then, of course, we have this strange week, which has a history of immolation, things exploding in the sky, high-profile events. So I have to leave now. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. We covered quite a lot. One of the overarching points I made, raised by JLB, is that we have to have a higher quality of claims when we call something fake. They have to be coming from a place of information and reason, informed disbelief. Knee-jerk disbelief, not believing out of contrarianism, is not skepticism. And it is not skeptical, whatsoever to just call something fake without reason. So even in this case, I have my reasons for not thinking it's absolutely true. It's likely a psyop. Am I saying nobody died, nobody cried? Uh, I don't have enough right now, but that's where my leaning is. But if your leaning is it's real, I would ask you, well, what special knowledge and information do you have aside from what was served to you on the screen? You know, if you just believe what you see on the screen, the official story of everything is what you would believe. And that is what goes down in the history books. They do actually have the effect long term of steering our history in whatever way they want because they write it in advance. Okay, this is great. Appreciate all the comments. We've got like 160 people listening. Make sure you subscribe to get the archives at ips.monster. ips.monster. Patreon's ending this week. I'm suspending it, so it's still there for free notifications, but I've changed my source of funding for the channel to a small business that I started and my art. I think this will do better if I'm not subject to censorship or anything else that could possibly derail this think tank. So we're on a firmer foundation than before. And a lot of that's just because, I decided long term, this has to be sustainable, and we can barely talk about certain subjects. So this is it's not stable, but it is now. Conscious Reality says the event tonight will impact the Super Bowl. Interesting point there. I'll put out a blog post tonight. I'm going to put down all the different things that were coming up here as far as what was the plane flight time, what time was the impact, what other things here are suggestive that this might be some kind of a psyop story being told to the public. And again, large-scale, multi-agency nuclear incident training exercise taking place 126 to 131. This is in New York, but we're talking about large-scale simulations going down right now. So we'll cover that and everything else. But whenever there's drills, the DHS, the Department of Psyops, is obviously active and moving around. I'll put the chat back on the screen. I realize it's not on there, and I have to add a few other things. It's a new computer. We had a computer crash about a week and a half ago, and I managed to not really break stride here. And while I was off, we had a break for a few days. I did a music video for Dawn of the New Day, One-Eyed Jack and the Shells, which has me thinking about getting back into animation as far as South Pole. And I had this tentative script I'm working on that makes a parody of the final experiment. If anybody's interested in another South Pole season, if you're an animator, if you're versed in any of these AI text to video or anything like that, and you want to participate, just get into the Gilded. That is the place where we're centralizing all of the operations. So thanks again for joining. We'll continue this tomorrow.